Okay, we're live. Hey, Dan. Hey, Charlie. Welcome. We're doing another episode of my podcast. And today I'm really excited to talk with my friend Dan and Charlie about topics covering things like parenthood, um, living well. This is like a big one on my mind. Navigating career decisions. I feel like both of you have experience in like starting a business or raising funds. What is it like to go off on this adventure, but also like commit to working in it and maintaining it? Then there's a lot on my mind around like starting a family, which Charlie, you're like about to start a family, and like then parenting, and how do you navigate the conditions, setting up conditions for like a life that you feel really fulfilled with. Um, there's also some topics on my mind around like healthy male role models and gender norms that I'm excited to get into. But yeah, first I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. So, Dan, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Dan. I live in Maine with my wife and my two daughters who are 6 and 10 years old, and I've made a career for myself in music and music technology, and I'm also a musician. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about all those things. That sounds fun. So I'm ready to get into it. Let's do it. Charlie?
Yeah. Well, so in preparation, what I did for this podcast, thank you for having me, Christine, is
Mhm.
I went and found all of the answers to all the questions that you're most yearning for in life, so that by the end of the podcast, you'll just feel good. You'll feel settled
We'll have the
and kind of
answers.
done with the exploratory part of your life. So I'm excited to share those with you. I'm in Los Angeles with my wife. She's in her second trimester. We're having a baby girl in a few months. I'm stoked. I'm the last of my guy friends to have a kid, so I'm really excited, and I want to start that journey. And professionally, I've done a bunch of weird different things, but a serial entrepreneur, and currently my startup is doing home insurance in disaster states. So like climate change is affecting everything, and we're like mostly in Florida, California, and Texas, and trying to figure out how AI is going to hopefully make people in my space better and not like fully replace us. But that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I'm just excited to be here and hang out and talk about all the stuff that you just said. I think like actually super under discussed topics.
Hmm. Yeah. And I guess so. I'll speak to like what instigated this, which was basically I have this like friend big group chat, and one day Dan posted like I think it was like a gratitude or like a win, and it was like I had this lovely day of hanging out with like you like I don't know, breakfast with your kids, and then you walked over and played music with your musician friends, and then like you have actual work, but it just seems like all folded in so well, and I've always admired that about you and like how you've set up your career and life and family in a way that I often don't see amongst like I have like a lot of creative friends, and I have friends who have really stable careers and lives, but there's like this balance effect that yeah, I was like struck by this. And then Charlie, I feel like you also I think of you and Kat as like one of my role models for like really healthy love. And you're about to have this child, which feels really exciting. A lot of my friends are, I think, getting into having children. So there's like this part of like understanding what it's like in the journey ahead, and like the things that you think through. You've also done like these like men's circles, right, in the past where it was like talking with different guys about like their experiences. And I think something my friend pointed out to me that I didn't realize was interesting about this community is just like the existence of healthy gender norms, and like um yeah, like having guy friends, or like guys having guy friends that are fairly healthy or like vulnerable or able to share about their lives. So I think that's also an area that I'm interested to get into. Um, but maybe we can start with just like background stories. Maybe you can give a spiel, Dan, on like, yeah, like uh, anything you find like relevant, but it could be like, oh, your career, or like how you how even we met, like through this like sort of Twitter sphere. Your music, you've had so many interesting like it was like a passion in music, but then there was like a whole decision making process that led you to like start these companies. So yeah, go for it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'll start with some of the career stuff because that does predate family stuff, and then maybe we can weave them together. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've always been involved with music and played and studied music, and um, I think, I've had this guiding principle all through my life and my career that I just wanted to be around music, right? So, um, it was this kind of non-specific desire, right? Like I didn't say, oh, I'm definitely going to be a musician or I'm definitely going to start be in the music business. I
Mm.
just knew I wanted to be involved with music, and as a result, I've been able to build this career because I think I've always been somewhat flexible about what that involvement looked like. And as a result too, when opportunities have come up, I've been able to um, take advantage of them without having to fit myself into too much of a box, right? And in general, I've always had this principle of when it comes to professional path in general, of like finding things you love that also love you back. I think a lot of people focus on the passion or the thing they love, but sometimes those things don't love them back. And in a career that looks like, opportunity, it looks like being paid for it, right? Like I think
Mm.
that's part of it, is when a career loves you back, you can be compensated for it in a way that is comfortable for you. And in general, having it feel symbiotic, for lack of a better word, right? It's like it's always felt like this give and take for me, and that there's times when there's more or less resistance, but that eases and ebbs and flows like everything else. um and so yeah, I feel like that principle that I'm talking about there, though, weaves into lots of things in my life, in terms of how I try and use my intuition or that sense of push and pull to find the places where I belong, for lack of a better word, where I feel balanced,
How did
So
you
I don't know,
find this?
does that answer your question?
Well, I have so many questions actually.
Buckle up, Dan.
That's why I got my tea here.
I'll just ask one or so and like I wanted like sort of like this background from you and from Charlie, right? So like we'll continue that thread. But yeah, how did you come across these principles? Like did you spend some time like following your passion for music? Like how did you come across the love something that loves you back?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, relatively recently, I articulated that in a conversation with a friend who was asking me sort of
Mm-hmm.
for advice around this
Yeah.
kind of thing of finding their path professionally. And I think, um, yeah, there's this internal signal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's feedback from the universe. And I think those are both really important, right? I think it's simplistic to say just follow your passion, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I think, um, the love that you have on your side, the thing that you love, is part of what sustains you, right? Through anything, through a career,
Yeah.
through a relationship, through all of these things. And then what loves you back that's a virtuous cycle then, right? Of like, you find the things that love you back, and then it it allows you to keep doing those things. Because the other thing I'd say, it doesn't necessarily mean that's easy, right? I think that's a really important distinction here. That doesn't mean that the things you do are easy. Actually, I think it is what you allows you to do hard things, right? And ambitious things is that fuel of
Uh-huh.
loving it and it loving you back. But I think, I mean, like anyone, I think part of how I figured it out was by banging my head against, lots of things for a long time, like trying to push into things that weren't loving me back, right? First of
Mhm.
all, right? And
Yeah.
giving myself and my life force and my energy to things that didn't love me back, right? I've certainly had that experience in my life and my career. and then finding the alternative, right? And learning the sort of subtle cues and differences between those, because I think it's really easy to mistake um, the trappings of or the external signifiers of for the real thing, right? So like there could be things that look really cool on paper, but if the reality of them isn't that, then you have to question whether that's really it or
Mm.
not. You know what I mean? So that's briefly how I've come to that belief.
I love hearing people's like guiding principles that they've come across, like especially, yeah, because I know I think you said like you said something earlier about like you never said that you had to become a musician or had to like get into music industry. Instead, you just wanted to be working alongside music. Is that right?
Yeah, I just want to be around music, you know, be around
Yeah.
musicians and music and involved in it. I guess it was really the way I think about it, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, and that gave you a lot of flexibility for figuring out like what form that takes.
So, and to be clear, I did try and be a musician, right? And that was a good example of something that didn't love me back. And I apparently didn't have enough of that kind of internal fortitude to say, no, I love it enough to push through that, right? And see if it's going to change, right? I hit that
Yeah.
wall, and I tried different paths through that to get to that kind of understanding of where I would fit into that puzzle.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, maybe we can start with career. So like Charlie, how does that map onto like how you navigate your career or like how you think about it?
Well, first off, I just want Dan. Do you know I'm a musician somewhat of myself here? Have you seen Whiplash? I assume you've seen
Oh, yeah.
Whiplash.
Of course, yeah.
More interesting question is whether or not Christine has seen
I
Whiplash.
don't know.
Because you love film and you should watch that movie. It's a
Mm,
great movie. Well, there's a scene, Christine, where the drummer is falling off tempo and
okay.
the teacher or conductor is just like slapping him, like physically, when he's
Okay.
off tempo. I think that's just been my high school drumming peak. I could never get past the fact that if I was actually going to become a drummer, I would just get slapped all the time, perennially. But I had fun, and it's still to this day I have fun off-tempo drumming. So I saw your drum kit in the back and made me think of that. That didn't answer Christine's question at all. That's fine. Okay. Okay. I'll suggest something to you, Christine, and then you tell me if you're okay with me
Okay.
pivoting from going straight into career. Um, Typically, when I'm like doing podcasts and I'm doing things, I'm not with people that I've earned trust with through years of actual relationship and sharing, but because it's
Yeah.
your podcast, it's
Mhm.
kind of a rare thing. So I would be happy to do the fast version of actually my guiding principles through life experience, but like the zoom out, because I think that actually is way
Cool.
more earnest. And it also explains kind of what you're talking about is like most people at different times in their life have a Bible and then they put that Bible down and they pick up some new Bible. And sometimes people do this 3 or 4 times. Sometimes they only do it once. So does that sound cool? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always so happy to talk about career stuff. I think it's more interesting for the topics that we're going to talk about with the gender stuff, with the family stuff, with all. I think it just makes more sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Follow
shit
the
that I wouldn't
conversation.
necessarily say at the beginning of a podcast. If people are listening, FYI, it's gonna get real, but I'm very comfortable sharing about it, so you don't have to worry about me.
Well, I would also
Um,
love a little context also, Charlie, as you're giving these guiding principles, like, oh, this is
yeah,
where I'm coming from kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I grew up in a household where there was like pretty frequent abuse, and I think that it took me a while to figure out your nervous system does cope pretty early on as a kid. And I full on had really delightful like escapism into like hardcore Jesus freak Southern Baptist. The world's 5,000 years old. If you're listening to Coldplay, that's demonic, which sounds like I'm kind of doing hyperbole for an audience. But in my classes at my school, we watched documentaries that literally said that Coldplay used demonic African beats. And then we need to like bring all of our secular music in and burn them. So I had like a very radical experience of like one way to escape what was happening at home was to find like this like deeply meaningful religious aspect of my life that was very radical in a lot of ways. And then that Bible kind of got put down as I was going into college. And the short version of that is emotionally, I couldn't reckon with this idea that if there was an all powerful, all loving, all just God in the religion I was like deeply enmeshed in, more than half of his creation was going to like literally burn forever. And so emotionally, that was just like too difficult for me to reckon. And I just didn't like it. I was like, I feel like if there is a God that's like this, they're going to be like way more creative. Like maybe there's still consequence and maybe there's still punishment. There's some other, but that's just very, I'm going to get struck by God in this chair saying this. It's just not very creative to just send half of your creation to burn. It just didn't make sense to me. So I put that Bible down. And then I think I got really into like activism and politics, which is how I got into this. Kind of answers a question you're going to ask later. But like Twitter for me was news, sports, entertainment. It was just putting down an actual newspaper because I liked reading the newspaper, which probably dates me a little bit. And then it was like a better version of the newspaper. Like that's what Twitter was for me. How I ended up in Teapot's a different story. And then I think fully thinking of myself as an entrepreneur and putting a lot of my identity into being an entrepreneur. And all of that still was unstable because my nervous system was the same since I was 6. I just was like run, exhausted, sleep, wake up, feel like I got to start running again. And luckily I asked for help. I've written a lot about this in my Substack. I did like 4 years of therapy. I did ketamine assisted therapy, which actually was amazing for me. And I just started to figure out that actually you can feel at peace within your own body and you can feel like you're enough. And so everything in the last 5 years, me meeting my wife, me starting a family, me doing the men's groups, me creating more than I've ever created in my life. I actually think it's important for me to like reflect and look back that like I've had these different Bibles that I picked up for meaning and for purpose and for most of anything to feel safe. And it's only like recently that I feel like from a guiding principle standpoint, my starting place is that I actually just feel safe now most of the time when I wake up. And that actually for people that will understand that, they'll really understand that. And that is a huge difference maker for everything we're going to talk about.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Charlie. Okay.
I can also talk about my companies, I guess, now if you want, or whatever else.
So before you didn't feel safe when you woke up in the morning, like
Oh yeah,
ever?
like yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Immediately. And the best way to do that was just to do things. And if I do enough things, some type of external validation, I can like calm myself down enough, to feel like I'm okay and like there isn't like a bear chasing me. And it's still with me now, but it's just so much smaller and I'm learning more and more to like welcome it in. And I know you're into IFS and I feel like there's a lot that I learned from IFS that helps with
Yeah.
that versus trying to repress it or ignore it,
Well, this is really interesting and like again, just following where the conversation like wants to go. For me, IFS was very much around I hear the safety a lot from my guy friends actually. And I'm curious, like Dan and Charlie, because you guys, I know Dan, you've done some coaching, like coach, and then like Charlie, you too. And I hear from like most of my guy friends this like pervasive sense of just like not being safe. Whereas for me, IFS was a lot more looking at like not feeling like I'm enough or like not like looking into the mirror and like not liking myself on like a deep visceral like flinch away kind of level as opposed to not feeling safe. So I'm kind of curious like if that's something you've like I don't know do you talk to your friends about it? Is it like a thing that you've seen? Is it like uniquely more male? Like yeah, what do you guys
I'd love to
think?
hear what Dan thinks about that as well. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have enough data points to generalize about it.
Yeah.
But I will say that for myself, first of all, that I can relate to, seeking both identity and safety through activity at points of my life, right? And then there's this, for lack of a better word, addictive quality of that, where when you find it, then you want more of it, but it can never really fill that deep well, So it's this kind of constant temporary relief that you get from that. But that's the road to burnout, right? Of trying to do that through external activity, right? As opposed to it coming from something inside of you. And I think for me, it's there is this how do I put this? It's both accepting that there is no real safety for me. There's been like a big thing of just like, there's no permanent safety, maybe is a better way to put it, right? It's a something that comes and goes. But the more you're able to understand what it feels like when it's there, the shorter lived that cycle can be, right? So you can go through that cycle of feeling unsafe or feeling unwell in whatever way and get back to that feeling of safety faster. But if you try and cling to it as like something that you've fixed or something that you've healed, that's to me is just generally doesn't work. And for me and my friends or people I've done some coaching with and things like that, I think it it really does have to be a felt sense first, right? It has to be something that you feel physically, um, and learn to uh, notice the patterns of, like it's a patterning thing, and then yeah, basically learning how to uh, over time maintain that center of gravity, maintain that kind of groundedness through the vicissitudes and roller coasters of life that happen no matter what, right? All those external things that you can't control. So much is out of our control, right? And um, trying to expand your locus of control usually doesn't work, right? That's a house of cards. And so I think, really understanding what your boundaries are from a control perspective and what is in your control in any given situation is allows me and allows people I've talked to actually relax into life, right? It's like that you can't do anything about that. Right? That thing you're worried about, if you're worried about things that you are not in control of, you're going to have a bad time. Right? Like that's always going to lead to feeling unsafe or feeling bad in different ways if we just put a one word on it. So for me, yeah, I think it's been
It's
a
a good
journey.
word though. It's underused.
Yeah,
Bad.
Yeah, that's
Like
bad.
bring it back to just say like, oh, that feels bad.
Everyone
Like I
knows what
feel
it means
bad.
if you say it,
Yeah.
right? You don't need a multi-syllable word. You just go with bad. And I
That's
think
what I'm
what
saying.
I would say, and maybe this gets into too, a topic of just healthy aging in general, is that I am happy to report I'll turn 43 in May, that that's getting easier for me. It's like, and it wasn't easy for me, certainly in my 20s, certainly my teens, and like for me specifically, I really suffered with anxiety. It was like a big, cluster that, and not that I figured out how to work with, and that's still present, that I still comes up in different ways, but that I've learned to work with. And yeah, I feel much more able to do that now than I ever have, and I seem to be continuing to get better at that. So there's continued hope for whatever anyone is experiencing earlier in their life, that you can just some of it just takes time, though. I think it's also good to be very patient with yourself with these kind of life knots. You don't have to solve them all.
Mm, yeah. Charlie, did you have something to add there around like the
Always. Are you kidding me?
of
I could
course.
talk for the next 3 hours. There's something to add to every comment that anybody's ever made ever. Okay, so the thing is, the feeling thing, I think, was the thing I resonated with the most, and that's where I'm not trying to treat ketamine like a miracle drug. I don't. I don't want to have that conversation, but it calmed me down so much that I felt the body and the feeling of my body, and then I realized like I could create that myself. I didn't need drugs or medicine or anything to get there. And so that it became like this, like, fuck, I can actually feel at peace. Like it's possible to have this feeling in my body. And then that awareness was like, well, wouldn't it make sense for me with patience, like Dan's saying, not with like an urgency to an epiphany or something, but like with patience, wouldn't it make sense for me to like keep getting better at that muscle that's been like lying dormant but was always there? It was like at the core of who I am is always the ability to feel peace, and that was a complete inverse of everything else. It was like achievement, validation, the people around me. Is somebody upset? If I can make sure that is somebody perceiving me in a certain way, like let me control for all the possible factors, and then maybe I won't feel peaceful, but I won't feel as anxious. And then to feel like it's like that reversal of like, a lot of people told me that shit. It wasn't like I hadn't heard that. Like it's obviously very popular stuff that, it's in culture, but feeling it was massively helpful for me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm going to skip way ahead. I'm just going to say
Yeah.
it now.
Go for it.
That's how you become a good parent. Well, all the stuff that we were just talking about.
Oh,
That's like this is like that's
Yo.
the majority of the battle, I think, honestly. There's all kinds of ways that other things, there's the other skills that cluster around that, but like to me that's really the heart of a lot of it.
Okay, I'm just gonna write that in my little notes. You're becoming a dad. Give me a second. Feel it.
wait, so that is how you becoming a parent, that being like feeling in your body and like practicing feeling safe and grounded and knowing what you can control and can't control, like this is the muscle that you're saying helps with being a parent.
Yeah, yeah, because there's so much that's out of your control as a parent, and um and specifically, it's this really visceral thing of being responsible for this life, right? Like it's really,
Mm,
really intense. This thing that's out of
yeah.
your control all of a sudden, and lots of parents talk about this is not a unique observation, right? That all of a sudden it's like having your heart outside of your body, and you're trying to keep it safe, right? It's this really visceral thing of this life that you've brought into the world that you want to keep safe and you want to nurture, and
Mm,
it's going to get sick, it's going to be up in the middle of the night, there's the early parts, but that it doesn't go away, it just changes in shape as your kids get older,
mhm,
right? The types of things that are out of your control, um, and yeah, I think that skill of being able to realize what your sphere of influence is and how you can, you know, especially as a dad, I think, provide
mhm.
some kind of anchor, right? For your family, for yourself, right? But that kind of grounded presence and something steady in the center of all of that, for everyone that's a bunch of it. It's a lot of it, I think.
Wait, okay, so I'm also so curious about what you just said about like being an anchor, being grounded and having like a grounded presence. Is that something you built up over time, like you mentioned before? Or like what was that journey like for you? Just want to hear more about that.
Yeah, it was a journey for me. I think, it's like, I don't know if anything can totally prepare you for the reality of it, right? And I
Yeah.
think, pre becoming a dad and post is like this. It's a cliff you can't see over, right? I mean, you can think about it all you want, you can do all these mental preparations, but until it happens, there's just nothing that can really prepare you for the reality of it, and the reality of how drastic of a um, change it is just to your life, your identity, all of these things. And yeah, I don't think it wasn't easy for me immediately to do that. And I think a lot of the ways I'd previously coped with the world just totally broke when I became a dad, right? Like a lot of the things
I
that used to
bet.
work great and make it appear maybe that I was more grounded, right? Like
Yeah.
in my old life, I think people would have said before that I was pretty grounded too.
Uh-huh.
But what they didn't see was I had all this time and space to do all of these things to make me grounded, right? So it's like it's great when you have your entire weekend to yourself and you can go do Pilates and go for a bike ride and go to, I like to go to the record shop, right? I had all these things, and if I could do all of those things, I was grounded, it was great, right? As long as I had all of my time for my coping mechanisms and all this slack in my life, right? But then that slack's gone, right? Or like drastically reduced, right?
Yeah.
And then you find out how grounded you really are, right? It's like when you don't have all of this time to do all of these things, and it really
Yeah.
becomes the only way to do it, in my experience, is moment to moment. Like you can't be this big reactionary thing where you allow tension to build up and then you have this thing that allows you to reduce tension, right?
Wow.
You just can't let it build up at all. You have to get into this moment to moment um awareness and approach that you just don't ever get to that place where you need to go do, you know, 8 hours of unwinding every week in order to be a functioning human being, right? So no, I learned that the hard way.
Clip it. Clip it. Riverside AI note taker. Clip the minute mark. 30 minutes and 9 seconds. I love it, man. It reminds me of one of my favorite things. I remember when I was doing like all this holistic health, Western meets Eastern, me like trying to retrain like a very like I'm like a business entrepreneur, like guys being dudes mind. I'm not super into any of I'm like the guy that would be like, that's too woo. And I remember like working very reluctantly with my therapist and basically like changing my relationship in the family business because my parents are my bosses and it was awful and it was causing me so much stress. And I did all this healing and I negotiated boundaries and I figured out all this shit where I was actually making myself suffer more. It wasn't somebody else doing it to me and all that kind of stuff. And I remember being like, all right, I think I'm ready to stop sabotaging my dating life now because I feel like in a lot of ways there's all these connected things, you know, where you sabotage romance, which is still everything. And I remember my therapist being like, well, yeah, you have grown and you have done a lot of work, you have done a lot of healing, but just, you know, it's a reminder, it's okay to like grade yourself with a curve because you're taking all this stuff that you've practiced and you've learned. But to get that muscle sharpened in a new context is like going back and starting with like lower level weights. It's not like you get to have this immediate transfer of all this inner work you've done when it's a
Yeah.
new context that you're building it in. And so I feel like it's very similar to kind of what you're saying, right? It's like, yeah, but I did so much work and healing in these other parts of my life. Like, yeah, the context is different, you know? And I love the moment to moment thing because I think that like when I conquered that feeling of not feeling enough, it was a lot of like scarcity, like, yeah, my time's not being deployed efficiently. And so I can feel the potential of who I am like falling out of my hands. And I can feel it slipping all the versions of me that I could be, right? Versus the abundance that I started to realize you can find as well, right? And I'm not in any perennial state of abundance. That sounds great. I'll keep doing that jhana stuff with Pranab and maybe I'll figure it out. But like this feeling more of being able to practice that muscle, being like moment to moment feeling abundance and joy and whatever there is and not imagining, especially when we're all three of us are all creatives. Like I love writing. I think all three of us love being creatives. I think it's such a skill of ours that we can also be a victim of the imagination of all the ways that time could be used otherwise. And then you can get caught in that like scarcity. What is this beautiful thing that I've committed to? What is it costing me versus what is it giving me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's this Anais Nin quote I love that I'll paraphrase, but she talks about how all of her different sort of identities, that she was a mother and a writer and all of these things, and that she was able to do them all once she realized none of them were in competition with her. In other words, she stopped putting them in tension with each other, I think is the phrase she uses. And I have it somewhere. I'll share it with you both, but I find it really inspirational. I remember when I first read it, it was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me that these things are only in tension if we put them in tension. In fact, like, you know, for me, an example is that, you know, I'm a musician, I do this creative stuff. I've also been a software engineer. I've written code. I've a dad. I do all these things. And, you know, some of those things we were told growing up, maybe they're in tension with each other, right? Or, you know, you'd be one thing or another. And it's like, no, any one of us is proof that that's not true, right? Like if you can do all those things and you enjoy those things, then they're not, right? You're proof of that. Like our human lives are proof that we can do all of these different things. And we shouldn't let our ideas about them, in other words, get in the way of that. You know, I think that's a big part of it is just deal with reality, right? The reality of what you're doing. And then you don't have to psych yourself out with, oh, I don't have time to do this or that. You know, one of the things I've learned as a parent is I can do anything, you know, like quickly. If I have 15 minutes, I can be creative, right? When I was younger, I used to think, oh, I'm going to block out a day. I'm going to go on I got to rent a cabin in the woods. I'm going to go write an album, right? It's like, no, I could write a song in like 15 minutes while my daughter's in her piano lesson, right?
Wow.
Why can't I? I don't know. It's like most people, the reason they can't is because they think they can't, not because it's impossible, right? And that creative state that you're in, you can actually live a lot more of your life in it than people think, right? You can stay in this kind of creative flow that leads into that space a lot more of an easeful way, rather than turning it on and off all the time. Yeah, I'll share it with you.
That sounds ideal. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, I can do
She's a big
everything.
inspiration of mine in general as a thinker and writer. Like I've always admired her clarity of thought. And yeah, this quote is something I've come back to repeatedly.
Cool. I kind of want to go. We have questions from people
from the audience. Okay,
from the
here we go.
audience. This was kind of relevant. How is Charlie feeling about his wife being pregnant?
All right. Here we go. We'll get right to it. I am my number one thing,
Uh-huh.
because the first trimester was like, I felt like brutal for my wife,
Mm,
and she's already like, oh, it was tough, and I'm like, fuck, I remember it was more than tough. Like, she's like, because the second trimester she feels like so much better, and it's like
uh-huh.
two different people.
Wow.
So coming out of that, my very human, very like underthought answer is I kind of just paying a lot of attention to her still, like. She
Yeah.
eating?
Oh.
She's sleeping? Does she need things? Because I feel like it's all top down from there, and I don't have a lot of the same encumbrances. And I think like at some points in the first trimester, kind of like what Dan was kind of alluding to, I was struggling to like figure it out, because it felt like I had so much less time, and felt like so hard to make sure that like I could help her and take care of her. And then I had like this aha moment being like, oh, if she could switch with me right now as far as how she feels, she would just like snap her fingers and she would like switch with me, because I could see how bad she feels. And I'm like, I'm not
Wow.
feeling that way. I found like a new resource of energy, and I was like, I can figure this out. So I'm still coming out of that. Like, and I don't know how it was for the first trimesters for your wife for the pregnancies, but it was tough. So actually, I'm not thinking about when the baby's due. I'm not pressuring myself to read like 5 books in the next month. I'm not like doing all this living through the future. I'm actually just kind of like day by day. How is she doing? How can she feel like she's got a fucking awesome, steady partner that's not like anxious about the baby coming, and taking it day by day. And then the other part is I have just the most amazing group of friends. And this is going to answer one of the other questions probably that I'm going to be asked, or that you would ask, Christine. So I'm just knocking out multiple birds with this one.
Amazing.
But what normal is, and we've known this forever, we've seen it on like even like fucking Hallmark cards, is like
Uh-huh.
you are the 5 people you spend your most time with, right? However imperfect of a idea that is,
Mm,
there's a lot of truth to it. And so like my guy friends that I've somehow been able to hold on to since high school, they've established what normal is for me, to the point where other people have to point out to me that it's not
mhm,
normal, and that it's kind of remarkable, because I don't see it as remarkable. And I mean, like, no no crushing vices, no gambling debt, no secret affair, no like massive drug problem, no like it's cool to be like a attentive father. It's like cool to like do something nice for your wife and think about her needs or whatever. And so I don't feel like I don't feel like I do a lot of aspiring, or I don't feel like I do a lot of like, I gotta be the best. I actually just feel like my normal, and I have done work to keep these friends and build these relationships. Don't get me wrong. I will take some credit for it, but like, I don't know if that helps answer the question of just being like, that's like, even right now, they've all had kids. I'm the last one, and they're reminding me too, it's okay to like actually enjoy this period right now. You don't need to like fast forward and like try to think about every possible thing that's coming. You can
mm,
just like be present. And then the last tail to that is, how am I feeling about it right now? Is I am just taking a little bit more juicier bites of leisure time just with her. Hey, why don't
Nice.
we go do this
mm,
thing? It's just the two of us. And it doesn't have to be like, let's go to Hawaii. It could be like, I took her to a hummingbird sanctuary an hour outside of LA. But like in the moment, I could be like, ooh, I should just like soak this feeling up a little bit more, because this will
mm.
be the end of it just really being like the two of us, you know?
Yeah. Nice. Do you have any moments of just pure panic and existential terror though? Do you ever feel that just even for a second? I did when before my
Um,
first. I definitely had these moments where it would just like out of nowhere I would have this feeling like, holy shit, what's about to happen? I have no idea what's going on, and it
I've had
wasn't
two,
persistent, but
I've had two, and I know the number so specifically because it's weird to be like, it's been twice. But like I specifically know it's been twice, because the anxiety and depression stuff that I dealt with in my late 20s, early 30s was a lot of panic attack stuff. And so it's like when you recover from that, you're still very sensitive to knowing exactly what feels like a panic attack. Like you immediately
Mm,
can like know. And so I've had exactly 2 of those of being like, oh fuck, am I having a panic attack? They're like, all right, let me start breathing, let me start doing it. And they were both the first trimester, so it hasn't been in a minute, but it has been in that like, yeah, like, oh fuck. Um,
yeah, that's good.
mm.
2 is good. That's good. You're doing well.
Good. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I'll check back in with you in a month. We'll see if the number's gone up. As she gets bigger, I could see that maybe, being a thing.
Towards the
I felt
end,
it. I actually felt the
yeah.
baby kick for like the first time this week. So that was like wild.
Oh, I
Yeah.
need to visit.
Yeah.
I need to
Welcome
visit
anytime, Christine.
LA. Yeah. Yeah, I think that Joshua Tree or something there. I heard whispers of something happening. Um,
I'll tell you all the
but
details.
okay, unless Dan had more comments on that, I'm gonna move on to our next question, which is, how have your views on fatherhood changed over time?
Hmm. Well, I think they've simplified really over time. Like, I think I've boiled it down to, if your child is happy and healthy, you're doing well, and your goal is to nurture this person and this life, and there's all these, you know, um, second order indications of that and effects of that, and people tend to focus on those more than that core thing in my experience in conversations about it. And so there's these trends in parenthood. If you go back and you read books from the 60s all the way through now, it's just these trends, right? And it's like, what's the new hot thing that people are thinking about relative to parenting, right? And I think all of those they're generally well intentioned, right? But they're mostly the window dressing around this core task as a parent of making your child feel safe, feel loved. If your home is safe and your child is well fed and they're loved, you've done like the most important things. And whether you choose to you know, sleep train or send your kid to a Waldorf school or whatever the thing is that you're like stressed out about, right? Is it's not the thing, right? That's not the thing. And I think in general, the more stressed parents get about those things, the less they're able to do the task, right? Like,
Mm.
because those are really these external signifiers and, extra things in lots of ways. And so I feel like my views have just become simpler and simpler of like any good relationship of just trying to meet my kid where they are, you know, not, not bring my preconceived ideas about who they are or what their strengths or weaknesses are, right? Obviously know those, but try and just really understand who they're becoming as much as who they are, and to continue to just get to know them and nurture that thing that they're interested in or pushing towards, right? And and yeah, I think as a result of that though, there is this little piece of me that feels like I'm so much of a better parent now than when I started, that like
Mhm.
I do feel there's this little teeny piece of me. It's like, man, I would have another kid, right? Like, why not? I'd be so much better at it now. I've done it now twice, right? The third time I'm gonna nail it, right? And I was joking with my oldest daughter about this, about how the first kid's always a little bit of a guinea pig, It's like you're trying to figure it out, they're the test case, The second kid, you're sort of starting to figure it out, hopefully, but there's nothing that can really prepare you for it. So I don't know. I think my views have just, yeah, become simpler and simpler, and just more focused on enjoying the time I have with them too, because it's also gone by really quickly, in lots of ways. So my youngest turns 7 tomorrow. She's gonna be 7 tomorrow, and my oldest turns 11 in April. And yeah, I don't know. It just all feels really, really precious and fleeting. And because I already had a 7-year-old, I'm like, I know this is my last rodeo with a 7-year-old this next year, right? It's like it's the last time I'm gonna have a 7-year-old in my house, and 7-year-old energy is really specific. I think one of the things you all talked about IFS. I've never done it, but one of the things that I've taken out of parenting from the stuff I've read about IFS is that there's this aspect of parenting that is sort of parts work, in the sense that, if you want to really get in touch with your inner 7-year-old, for instance, you'd have to even know what that is, right? Like for me, at least, they all those 7 and 8, maybe, I don't know if I could have differentiated that as an adult before I had kids, and I hung out with, every day with someone who is 7 and 8, and understand these really distinct developmental phases.
Mhm.
So all those little tiny developmental phases and energies, they're really precious, you know, they're really amazing to be around. And so I think I'm also, as a result, I think I'm a more present father at this point. You know, I think I'm just getting better at just really enjoying all of it. And yeah, just
Dan, that was fucking
so
beautiful, dude. We should clip that shit too. That was great. It was so good. I mean, like, I will say, like, I'm having my first kid, but I know that one thing that's different for sure is similar to what you're talking about. One thing that's different is if I had had a kid at 30 or 28, which I would have been happy to do, by the way, because I would have had more time with my kids. Like, if I could go back and I would do that. But I would have had like a long list of like, here's all the things I want to do different than my parents. And it's not that I don't have that list anymore, but it's so much more like my parents did the best they could and I turned out all right and I like myself and I accept myself and I just want to focus on like my job is to be love and to be safe and to be steady. And so similar to the things you said, and not to be like, now you need to go up. You're the next generation. You need to go up, like get to a better school or get to a better this or to do that. Or like, you're going to go and we're doing Montessori for this, but we're going to make sure we do like, maybe obviously my wife and I will care about decision makings and we'll like strategize and everything. But like, there isn't this, pressing anxiety or worry of like, because I think in a lot of ways it's not really about my kid. I'm just like talking about the things that I wish I could have different about me, and I don't want that to clutter up what like my job is, you know?
totally, man. Yep, I do, and I think you're absolutely right. Though it's like it's not that you don't care about those decisions, right? Of course you do. You think about school and you think about all these things, but what you don't believe is that any of them are either catastrophic or life making or breaking, right? It's like that is not the heart of the thing, you know. It's not the thing. These are all extra things that you do your best with, and that sort of drive for perfection can actually be really destructive. I've seen that in a lot of families, and because then it puts this pressure on everything, right? And I don't think that's a healthy energy for a family, right? Of this kind of pressure. There's something else you said that I think is really important, which is I do think there's this strong reactionary tendency in a lot of people relative to their parents or society or something like that. And it's better to just know what is important to you. Like, don't be reactive to these other things, and don't swing to another extreme. Like, even if your parents did something way over here that you don't agree with, if you swing to this other extreme, your kids are gonna, guess what? They're gonna find that pretty extreme too. It's like good to
Yeah,
find
they're gonna end
movies.
up more like your grandparents. Yeah,
You
when they
can
get there.
adjust. Yeah, it's good to
Yeah.
adjust, but you don't have to swing to this way other extreme. And I think I've seen that be kind of destructive as well, with some families.
Cool. Moving. Well, this is somewhat similar, but the question is, who are your male role models? This one's from Tasha, our friend.
Look at us just
I'm
staring
thinking.
at each other, Dan. Look at us.
I mean, it's all people that, you know, I don't have any sort of, I don't think they have any famous role models, right? Have been men in my life who I've really admired, and
I'm
there's
curious
some,
why. Like,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. It honestly, it's people who have had a successful family life and a career, right? These are sort of the threads, right? I really admire people who have managed to, you know, have a long marriage, have children who they seem to still enjoy, who still seem to enjoy them, right? And who still have had an active, you know, creative and professional life. And when I meet them and I've gotten to spend time around them, I think the hallmarks of them that I've really admired outside of those external signifiers is how humble they are. I think there's like this inherent humility in those people, and this focus on what's important, right? Like when it comes down to trade-offs, because there's always trade-offs in life, they've chosen their family. They've chosen, you know, these things that were really important to them when they could have made other decisions, right? Where they could have, done something that could have been destructive for their family. They decided to take a year off the road touring or whatever the thing is, right? If you're a musician. And in general, yeah, I find those people to be both humble and also very protective in some way. Like this recurring theme that I've noticed is a lot of those men, they're very protective of their family life, right? Like they actually don't, they talk about their friends or their peers, but it's not something they sort of show off. It's this thing that's separate. And um, even if they're very accomplished professionally, they don't want that to be their family life. So in other words, right, you could be a famous musician, but your kids shouldn't care that you're famous, right? They should be their dad, right?
Mm.
And they seem to really understand that when they're home, they're not the person on stage or the executive or whatever the thing is that maybe makes them feel special or different when they're doing their professional life. They're able to turn that off when they come home and just be part of their family. And I think that's really something I admire.
Amazing. Charlie?
Tashin, I got none, dude. I got zero for you. Zilch, nada, nothing. No role models, no mentors. I'd be lying if I tried to fucking make one up. But I'm inspired by people. I'm inspired by my friends. I just don't have. Part of it can be as simple as I've over idealized people in the past, and it's like, people that were really close to me for decades, and then felt like there was moments just like a full tragedy, sadness, and how they changed their behavior. That maybe so half of the equation could just be like a lack of trust issues and wanting to and the weird dynamic of having like traditional role models and mentors. And then the other half could just be that like I love feeling this sense of being on the same side of the table as somebody and sharing this like we're talking about things together energy. I just feel more comfortable with that than I do of looking up to somebody. So there's probably like baggage there, but the truth is I really can't say anything, but I do want shout out to like my guy friends, the ones that I do like my men's group with, because I'm so inspired by the kind of parents they are. And they're like ahead of me. We're the same age, but they're like ahead of me in some of these journeys. And I do look up to them. So
I think even that's kind of rare. Like, I mean, I think having a group of guy friends that you really enjoy and like talk with regularly. I'm not sure. Like, especially like as you get older, I feel like it gets harder to maintain friends and friend groups that you talk to regularly. And like, I feel like a lot of families, like especially like my parents, right? It's like it's just the two of them. Not necessarily, especially if you move, like these things come into play. Yeah. I don't know if I see you guys nodding, if you want to comment on that, but there's also a question about like healthy male friendships that we could get into.
Yeah.
Dude, I would love to know what some of Dan's like healthiest guy friendships look like. Like I'm like
and also like healthy hetero like relationships, like guys being friends with girls, like
oh, dude,
I'm
super fucking traditional on that shit. Like I've like sailed goodbye to all my girlfriends. They're all gone. Like other than like friends of my wife. So I'd be like could be an interesting answer, but kind of a boring one. But I don't judge other people. I trust that other people are able to build those relationships. I know that it happens, but I'm definitely on the side of it's much more difficult and much more rare to have them. So that would be like my immediate hot take on that. But I don't know what Dan thinks about that.
I mean, I have, plenty of female friends. Some of them are are friends of both me and my wife. Some of them aren't. Some of them are from different eras of my life. And I will say that for me personally, I actually find being married and the frame of monogamy being really helpful for that. Like to me, it makes my female relationships sort of unambiguous. And I encourage that by talking about my wife and just making that clear, right? Or just trying to make that really unambiguous. And I think for me at least, that's really helpful. And it's a nice frame for me relative to that. but I really value all of my, the women in my life, and their perspectives and, energy they bring to, um, yeah, to everything. And so I would find that hard to sort of leave behind. And then on sort of the question of male relationships, well, I feel really lucky, honestly, because I have lifelong male friends that, I've known since I was a kid who I'm still really close with. And and for whatever reason, karmically or otherwise, we were always pretty vulnerable and
Mm.
emotionally open with each other, even from a pretty young age, which I didn't appreciate how rare it was until later in my life, and really understanding what was going on in the rest of the world and culturally, that was a rare thing, that like, being a 13-year-old boy and like, hugging your friends and telling them that you love them, and, having that be, I really, like, I grew up with friends who did that. And I don't even take credit for that. Some actually was more the other friends who influenced me on that front. But I feel really lucky that that's the case, because I think it did help me create this normalcy around that and then bring it into the rest of my life. And so I have friends from that era. I have really good college era friends, male friends that I stay in touch with, and I have this really special bond with because of just who you are when you're in college,
Mm.
um, very different relationship and dynamic with them. And we all stay in touch though, and try and see each other at least, once or twice a year, depending. Everyone's sort of spread out and it's not always easy. And then I feel really like I've made some really great friends as an adult too, including, some male friends who I still, we grab lunch multiple times a week. We see each other regularly, right? It's not like we just hang out and try and schedule things rarely, which is, I think, the challenge of adult friendship in general is scheduling, right? And it gets harder once you have a family. And so having friends who have professional proximity and ease of seeing, like, during my workday and stuff, has really helped for me to foster
Mm.
adult friendships. And in those friendships too, I think, um, maybe I'm able to sort of model that vulnerability more than I did younger, where it was influenced on me. Now I'm able to sort of do that for my male friends. And I think it's really appreciated, in general. And yeah, I'm a big fan of, telling my friends I love them, giving them hugs when I see them, it's like doing these things that I think are, and just telling them specific things I appreciate about them, and trying to remember their birthdays, right? Like there's right. These things are actually pillars of a good quality friendship, of showing that you care. And yeah, I also just, again, I feel very lucky. I've had these people in my life and attracted them, and they've attracted me in some way, that we've been able to meet each other. But I also think for me, I will say, going back to the one of the first things I talked about, is that what they all have in common is music. I've been friends with musicians. I've been friends with people in music and around music, and it is this thread that brings us together and creates that
Mhm.
initial connection. And there is this certain type of uh, weirdo, for lack of a better word, that is in the music world, that creates this relatability of, this common ground that we find with each other.
Mm.
I love that. Daniel, well, I'm going to invite you, and you can show up if you want, but there's no pressure, to what I call all my friends. And I wrote this about Substack, and it's the perfect segue for
Yeah.
me to take 90 seconds to plead with the listeners, to plead with you. If you're watching me on video, I have my hands out in front of me. I'm pleading with you to take an hour away from what you would otherwise group text, and scheduling. So we're talking about scheduling and time. That's the problem. Scheduling and time is the greatest currency. It's the most expensive thing. I've got 7 friends: Texas, New Jersey, Florida, Nashville, here in LA. We're all spread out once every 2 weeks for 90 minutes on a Zoom, right? We put our phones down. We can see each other. We can hear each other's laugh. And we have a loose but important structure. We're going to fuck around and have fun and have some type of gamification playfulness at the front, because guys want to be dudes, right? So something, and especially if they're all into music, it might be a lot of music stuff, right? We're doing a series right now where we share our 15 favorite songs of all time, and we share stories about like what those songs meant to us and what part of our lives they bring up or whatever it is, right? So we clear out and somebody just like says like, these are my 15 songs. But we also like joke and make, have fun and whatever and loose. But the most important part of it is that there's shit going on in everybody's lives. Everybody's dealing with something. With guys, we are especially resistant to talking about it. We just are. And prompting is the only way to increase the chances that it comes out, especially if you can have a couple people that are brave enough to kind of jump into the prompt. One person says, this thing's actually kind of tough. And the next person magically, the magic is immediate. Oh, well, they just admitted that something's tough. Yeah, actually, that's something for me too. And then it's a game over if the second person jumps in. Then everybody's like down to, and that is the magic that does not happen on a group text. Or if it does, if you have a magic Slack and a magic Discord where people are poets and they're beautiful with their language and they talk about all of the hardest things in their lives, that's valuable. Like, I'm not here to say like, don't do that. That is valuable. It's not as valuable. Seeing somebody, hearing somebody, you know, and in person is the ideal version of this that I want to slowly start to build here in LA, is in-person version of this. But to have something that's low commitment, 90 minutes, somebody can jump on for 45 minutes and jump off every other week. And all my friends have kids and are married and have complicated lives. And we've been doing this now for like 7 or 8 months, and all of our lives are better from being able to have a certain prompt for that like third part of it that can be about something, anything from talking about something as simple as sleep. And all of a sudden you find out that half the guys in the group fucking awful sleep and are really struggling and are now sharing things they've learned about how they can help each other on that thing, right? To actual talking about their marriage or talking about being a parent or talking about, like, we had one where it was just work gripes. So the last portion of it was just like, everybody gets to go around and just clear out. And what's the fucking work gripe? And so I'm like pleading with people to think that we've all loved being writers, and we've all loved being in group text or in texting or in Slack or everywhere. And it's bad. It's like real bad. And we need like a correction to it. We don't have to completely get rid of that stuff, you know, but even now we're looking at each other and seeing each other and hearing each other. And like Dan's nodding while I'm saying this is like not nothing. Like, we should actually talk about a lot about what it is to see his eyebrows raised and to see him like fully giving me his attention and how powerful that is. And I think especially for dudes, where it could just be as easy enough to send a GIF. And it might be really funny too. And the group chat might be like fucking hilarious, you know, but like, what are we doing with all the times we're using our thumbs for something that we could like really just tell somebody, how are you, you know, and like listen. Okay,
Yeah,
that's my fucking thesis.
No, I agree. Well, first of all, I wanted to say that Charlie said something really profound, which is that guys just want to be dudes. I feel like that's like, you know, you're so right. It's but also I agree with all of that, and I think there is if left to their own devices without the prompt or without someone who sort of breaks the ice, guys will sit around and bullshit about absolutely nothing, which is also fun and valid and worthwhile, to be clear, right, on its own. But you do need to break that ice a lot of the time to get to those conversations with people as men.
And just to clarify, so there's some like light structure or prompting or scaffolding. Is it a game?
Christine,
Like,
I was a pastor in another life. Like, I was a pastor of a medium-sized church. I turned down the mega church deals, right? Because I have to stand for something. And in my pastoral element, I am engaging people instead of talking at them for 2 hours. We have to play games, or we have to have some type of, you're showing up because I actually put preparation. It doesn't have to be a shit ton of preparation, but I put some thoughtful preparation into creating a space where you start to feel like your jaw unclench and your shoulders go down. And there's lots of different ways to do that. It's knowing who's showing up. And so like the one example that we already used though, but like just telling people to work on a playlist, people love working with playlists, and then they light up like it's show and tell. And then the little kid of them is now showing up to hang out. And then it's much easier to talk about real life shit when the little kid there is getting nostalgic about how this song made them feel when they were 16.
So there's like a presence of like a third thing that.
Yeah. The way that we try to do it is 3 things. One, the game, the fun, could be movies, could be whatever. You know, the game loosens up, gets the little kid out. 2 is gratitude, right? The first thing I did that I had the most fun with is I snuck around and messaged all my best friends, like people, their partners, the people closest to them, without them knowing about it, and got them to like write up these beautiful sentiments and things from the most recent chapter of their life where that person had showed up, and then just like never let anybody know whose week it was going to be. And then I would just like clear out and be like, all right, here's what Sean's wife had to say. And then they just have to sit there and like hear all of this gratitude and thankfulness and not say anything and just listen to it. And then I just like simply like let it breathe and be like, how does it make you feel to hear all that? And that just wholesomeness injection of, and then everybody, all the people that they care about also hearing this other side of them that we don't see. Like, Christine, I don't see you at work. I have no idea what you're like at lightning scares the shit out of me, by the way, but I have no idea like what your work life is like there and what beautiful things people would say about you. But if I heard like your supervisor or somebody else say something about you and you got to hear me like hear them say it, you know. And then the third one is, yes, I want to just go a little deeper into the pool, but I'm not trying to manipulate or force intimacy, you know. And that's what's really important is like, just because I have this ideal of like, oh my God, we all like Goodwill Hunting, hold each other. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. That's also another movie reference for you, Christine. Really beautiful scene with Robin Williams and Matt Damon. You know, even though I have this idea of like, oh my God, I'm a pastor and we're creating all this. No, like in truth, it's reminding myself like you create this environment. Whoever shows up does or doesn't show up, and whatever happens. Just the fact that we all like jumped on to log on, we already accomplished in my mind what it is. But that's why there's a like, and this is maybe I'll change it a year from now, but that's where I'm at right now is playing with the structure of those three things.
I love that. I feel like it does take someone like what you're doing to like sort of say, I want to go deeper and like kind of engage everyone and take that initiative and prompt them. And there's like a whole, almost like a design around it of like, oh, what would be like something that is, that feels like good and people want to share as opposed to like clamming up. Okay, I know we're close on time. There's one last question I think is very interesting. How do you balance ambition and softness as a man?
And softness, did you say?
Ambition and softness.
Do you want to tackle that one first, Charlie?
I just talked for 7 minutes about a men's group podcast I do.
You have a drink of water. I'll tackle it. Well, I think it's by picking your spots on softness, right? It's like there is something about ambition that requires at least some firmness. I don't know what we were talking about, the sort of what type of polarity we're playing with here, but maybe I'll talk about it real briefly in the context of parenting. Actually, I think softness is a really interesting one, which is that, and parenting daughters for me at least, I can only speak to, but I think it's really important, which is that I think it is really important to be, tender and soft with your kids, right? With my daughters. But it's also important to be firm with them in certain contexts, right? Because otherwise I'm giving them a bad model of the world, right? Because you're really trying to also prepare them to be in the world, right? And so an example would be if I told my daughter she can't do something she wants to do, and she's crying or upset, and then I'm soft and I'm like, oh, it's okay, you can do it, right? That's not being a good parent, in my opinion, right? That's giving them a bad model of how the world works, and it's giving them a bad sort of understanding of how their emotions can manipulate circumstances, right? So that's not the place to be soft, right? So it's understanding where to be soft and when to be soft. And I think that relates to the question of ambition too, which is, learning what types of resistance exist in the world, right? Like, if every time you encounter resistance, you think it's the universe telling you shouldn't do something, then you're never going to be ambitious or really accomplish anything, right? If that's what you want to do, like there's going to be resistance in the world to the things you're trying to do. And it depends how much you want them. That's, part of ambition is pushing past that. Right. But how you relate then to the people around you, or knowing when to turn that on and off in a given situation, I think that's the complement to that, right? That sort of softness or gentleness. And I think that sort of cliched, strong back, soft front kind of thing is definitely like a real thing too, right? Of sort of balancing those things. But yeah, I think it's a challenge. I think that's a dance, right? It's an ongoing dance that you have to figure out and listen to your life and the circumstances to get right.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'd probably a lot of the stuff I think I'd say, I'd sound like I'm just kind of parroting Joe Hudson on a lot of this. To make it a little bit more fun, I always loved the character of Leslie Knope in Parks and Recreation because she was incredibly ambitious and incredibly kind and incredibly strong, and they all melded together. And nothing, as we talked about earlier, nothing was at tension with each other, right? Ambition, though, does mean sometimes you will step on people's toes, but if your natural disposition is to manage kindness and strength as complementary pieces and not enemies, then when you step on somebody's toes, it's not the end of the world. And when you have the conversation with them about they're upset or they're intimidated, and they can feel in you ambition but also softness at the same time, you can just talk about it, and then the person, everybody can like navigate it so much clearer forward. So I very much live by that. Like, I'm crazy ambitious. I want to do so many things, and I just don't feel like it's competing against like hardness. And I'd probably do the thing of whoever asked the question, I'd probably sit there and like ask them like 5 more questions of like, tell me more what you mean. What do you mean when you say soft? And I just like keep going. I'd probably do something annoying like that, because in my mind, I immediately am already having trouble like relating to it, because I'm like, oh no, like I've just seen so many examples of people that are crazy ambitious. And when I think of like soft or hard, I don't necessarily see, like, I've just seen pathways already of ambitious and soft.
Yeah, I do think it's a red flag if you have to harden yourself though to be ambitious. I think there's a red flag, right? Like, if you, in terms of maybe the shape of your ambition, if that makes you harden yourself to the feelings of people or to the world around you, I think that maybe you should rethink that.
Dan, you just gave me the perfect fucking opportunity to shout out Pranab's Attention Copilot, and we'll put the logo up here, right? And then we have a discount code. I'm kidding. Pranab.
I'll link it. And I should have Pranab on here too.
You should, because it's actually very similar to this. I just did my first session ever with him yesterday, and I wanted to help him. I was like, record it and don't edit it, and then have it up, and then people can just watch me go through it, and they'll have an idea of what it's like.
Pranav's staying here right now. His working right now, doing his intentional co-piloting, but he'll be over. Okay,
so we'll just, the quick 90-second of it though is very similar to what we're on topic here about, because I know we're running out of time, but it's specifically what we're talking about. I like chilled out in my chair with all my to-dos and all the things that are important, all the busyness, and oh my God, all the intentions for my intention channel on my Slack that Christine has. And boulders are surrounding my mind. I strategically got to find the way to lift this boulder. And if I can get over here, and I'm like, oh, it's going to take so much energy. And I'm doing this, and I'm hunching over, and I'm grabbing my coffee, and I'm getting hard to like phrasing to like, go after this stuff, right? And then the Attention Copilot thing is great because it's like, oh no, the boulder just becomes less heavy. Like, let's just like unfurl the hands, loosen the jaw, talk about what's most important. What are you going to work on next? And we'll do it together. You're not sitting on a couch and talking about your life. I mean, I am a proponent of therapy done well, but instead we're going to talk about, while you work, the resistances and the things that are coming up. And I was like able to watch it in real time of like, it's everything becomes so much easier. Like Dan's saying, when you're able to like see that your ambition can come flowing out of you as you're like more open in a more natural state, and that it does not require you to, in fact, everything just gets harder. You just make everything more challenging and unsustainable to think that you have to like become this other like version of you that is now like, more strict or something,
Yeah,
anyway,
that's the road to burnout too, right? Like, even if you can do it for a while, you can't do it forever. You're going to burn out. Like,
I assume you and I speak from experience here, Dan. Like, because I'm speaking from experience of burning the fuck out with other startups that I had, and thinking that was the only way to access some like super version of myself. And the actual super version of myself is to be like really relaxed. And I still end up doing the work. That's the crazy thing. The work still gets done. It doesn't require you to feel like you're being chased by a bear to do amazing work. Like, that's a fallacy.
Have you read The Inner Game of Tennis? Do you know that book?
I think I do. That's the guy that like was a tennis coach, but then wrote The
Inner Game of Tennis. Like, it's called, Christine. I think that's the name of it. Now I'm second guessing myself. But it's, it's about how we work with ourselves to do the things we want to do, not, I think it relates to a lot of that as well. A lot of that cluster of how we achieve things in the world.
Cool. This was so lovely, guys. I feel like this is a very dense episode. Definitely send me like all the things that you guys shouted out in terms of like books or like quotes and whatnot. It was so good to see you guys.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Charlie. It was awesome. Really
This
great.
is awesome.
Thanks. Thanks
Yeah,
for hosting,
Dan, and just to
Christine.
say it before it ends, like specifically, Dan, like there's a few things specific to my chapter of life right now about becoming a dad that this was like invaluable for me to be able to participate and hear some things from you. So I'm really appreciative. And for Christine doing this, I had a great time.
Yeah. All right. See you guys next time.
Happy weekend.
Bye.